Hello and welcome to another edition of the LCU Coaches Show on 99.1 Chap Radio and online at chapradio.com. I'm Nathan Carcino, joined by Brennan Riker, and I'm now joined as well by the LCU head tennis coach Jason Speegle and assistant coach Marcelo Mann. Thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us on.
It's been a big last couple weeks for LCU tennis, but before we get into what's most recently happened, let's take a look at the beginning portion of the season and how we got to this point. We saw some great performances in Colorado in the Pueblo duels. So on both sides, how did that portion of the season look?
Yeah, Pueblo, we set a goal this year, coaches and players, that we wanted to go undefeated in Pueblo. And we were able to accomplish that. We had to be a little bit flexible with our schedule. We were up there a Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday, and it rained all day on Friday. And so we were able to actually play 3 of our matches Thursday night, which led to a long night. But then Friday, we didn't get any outdoor tennis in. I was able to call and get 3 indoor courts, so we got a men's match in the evening, and then we played 3 matches, two women's and 1 men's match on Saturday, and then we came home. So it was 3. It wasn't according to schedule, and it was 3 really long nights, but we were able to get all those matches in, and we were able to come out on top in all of them. And I think the biggest part that I saw was we went 20-0 in doubles over that weekend. And that compared to last year, I don't know that we won very many of the doubles points in Pueblo last year. And so that was a huge improvement from my perspective.
And in the second year of the program in NCAA play, what impressed you the most with how this team was able to get out to that undefeated start, and how much confidence does that give you as you build towards the next few tournaments?
I think it's important. The reason we play those duels in the fall is to give our players a taste of what team tennis is going to be like in the spring and try to build that family, team unity, and camaraderie. And our team's really good at that, especially the men. They're one unit. And Marcelo and I, we talk all the time about energy and having the most energy and being the loudest and pushing it to the point of being annoying without, stepping over any sportsmanship lines. And there are times we have to kind of rein our team in, but I would much rather have to rein them in a little bit than constantly be trying to get them focused on the match and energized and things like that. So I think that is huge in terms of just being one family, whether it's a women's match or a men's match, or both are playing. We are constantly preaching that's what we want to see out of our team. And on the tennis side of it, we just have really good tennis players. And I think our talent showed both at St. Mary's in our first weekend and then in Pueblo.
Well, you talk about the energy, and it's what makes college tennis a lot more unique than what fans might see on TV at Wimbledon, for example. So, Marcelo, you're a big guy who's contributing to that energy a lot of the time. We have that picture that was posted of a perfect headshot of Marcelo screaming, getting excited. So how much does that drive you to see the players have that much enthusiasm and energy? And then where do you think that ultimately comes from in the team environment?
Well, I think they feed off me and I feed off them. So it's both of us that play with that. But as Coach Speegle mentioned, energy is a big topic for us and something that we talk about every day in practices, even where we try to get them to a point where they're allowed in practice, where we're even alone by ourselves. So for us, I think this year was the energy level that was never as high as before as this semester. And one of the most remarkable things in our first weekend in San Antonio, a lot of the other assistant coaches had to tell their players to stand up, to even make some noise. Whereas I mentioned that to the team afterwards on that same day, I have to tell them to calm down in certain situations where we serve for a match and they're basically too loud, which is definitely a good thing to have compared to other teams that don't have that at all.
Now, looking at a little more recent, it was the Lady Chaps competing the ITA South Central Regional. That was played in Arlington a couple weeks ago, and we did see a big doubles performance from Axel Jachman and Anastasia Opalska. They went 3-1, reached the semifinals, and defeated the number 1 overall seed, getting to that before losing to the eventual champions in a very tight tiebreaker. So, Coach, what was it like to see this finish on the women's side, one of the best runs into a regional in women's history?
I mean, I knew going in that Anastasia and Excel would be a good doubles team. Excel is she's a big, powerful player. She has a big serve. She's big presence at the net. She has a big forehand. And Anastasia, she's very crafty. She's left-handed. She has very good hands at the net, a lot of drop shots, very good forehand and backhand, very steady. And so I thought they would complement each other pretty well. Obviously, I didn't know really until we got into the regional, how they might fare. But, they made the first two rounds look really easy. And then they just played the best tennis I've seen them play in the quarterfinals against the 1 seed. To beat the 1 seed 8-2, and really it wasn't competitive. I mean, there weren't competitive games. They were just kind of dominating that team. And then we played a DBU team in the semifinals that they were just steady. They played really, really well, and they made Anastasia and Excel work for everything. And at the end, it just kind of came down to a couple points here and there. So I was really excited to see that for Excel and Anastasia because they were successful. But then on the flip side, I was really disappointed for them to be that close to getting to a final and then having a chance to book a trip to nationals. When you get to a third set super tiebreaker in a semifinal of a regional, it can really go either way. And if we play that tiebreaker 10 times, it might be 5-5, but it just kind of turned out Dallas Baptist's way on that particular night. And I was disappointed for them because I knew how much they wanted it.
Coach Speegle mentioned how he knew they would be a good pairing, and this was a duo that we hadn't seen at all last year, both of them playing with different doubles partners a year ago. So through practices, Marcelo, how have you seen their chemistry grow, especially after a good performance like this? Even today, what has it been like to see them turn into this good doubles team?
Well, one of the toughest things I think in the fall is when we get new players and returning players after 3 months, 2 months, 3 months of a break, is who matches well with who. And we have our thoughts, and of course the player have their thoughts. And this one particularly, I think Excel and Anastasia just was a really good match. But to get to that point, we have to invest weeks of doubles practice where on one day you play with someone and the other day you play with someone else, and the results can vary. But that one was, I think, the best one that we had this semester, where the chemistry worked between them, but also the tennis just complemented each other, just as Coach Speegle described it. But that was something that we had to practice. It didn't fall from the sky. They didn't match perfectly on the first day either. But after a couple of weeks of practice and good matches in San Antonio the week before, and then in Colorado, we had a good feeling that they would work well together, and they played a great tournament. So it turned out perfectly for us.
And in singles, LCU saw some great performances from Michelle Troquez and Andrea De Bernardo, each making the quarterfinals and defeating top seeds along the way, seeds that were higher than them. Troquez was seeded 11 in the tournament. She got a victory over the 6 seed in the round of 16, and then De Bernardo getting wins over the 3 seed and the 10 seed as an unseeded freshman. So, Coach, how would you assess each of these showings on the singles side that allowed them to be successful?
Yeah, it was really great to see Michelle, have that success. She won a round last year, got beat in a close third set super tiebreaker in the second round. So, to see her go 2 rounds further than that, and I mean, she came out on fire in the quarterfinal against the girl that eventually went to the finals. And Michelle ended up losing in a third set. And so I thought she had a really great tournament. She's one of those players that when her game is on, she is really, really tough. I think maybe a little bit of nerves got to her second and third set of that quarterfinal. She just wants to win so badly that sometimes emotionally it's hard for her to kind of stay in that moment. And then Andrea, being a freshman, like, she's just never rattled. She's always steady. And she honestly, that weekend, if you'd ask her, she didn't have her best tennis. She told me most of the weekend she couldn't really feel her forehand very well. And against the 3 seed, she was cruising. I think she won the first set 6-2. She was up 3-1 or maybe 4-2 with a chance to go to 5-2 in the second set before letting that set slip away. And then she found herself down 6-9 in the third set super tiebreaker against the 3 seed in the second round. And she won 5 straight points. For a freshman, for anybody to do that, but for a freshman in their first regional tournament to battle off those 3 match points and then go ahead and win the match was awesome to see. If you've ever been to the Arlington Tennis Center, it's like 24 courts. It's huge. I think I was on court like 19 or 20 with Andrea, and Marcelo, I think, was over on court 5 or something with Maya Adler, and he texted me. He's like, "I just heard you scream. It must be 9-all." And sure enough, it was 9-all, and then he heard me again when we won 11-9. So, and then, Andrea played really well in the round of 16, won in the third set. And then I think she ran out of gas a little bit. In the quarterfinals, she just got tired, and the girl she was playing from Cameron that ended up beating her just hit ball after ball after ball, high level tennis. But that girl on that day wasn't going to beat herself, and but I was super proud of both of them. We had. Krustaleva got to the third round last year. And so to have 2 singles players get to the quarterfinals and obviously the doubles team get to the semifinals, I considered it a very, very successful weekend for the program.
Now looking at the men's team, LCU hosted the South Central Regional at the Pensacola Tennis Center this past weekend, and we saw great performances all over the place. But first, what was it like to have this privilege of hosting, and then how did this opportunity come about for a young program?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for coming out. I know I think I saw you out there every day, so we appreciate your support. So the way the regionals work is it's a bidding process, and so every November, the ITA opens up bid opportunities in any program, whether they're 2 years old or 50 years old. As long as you've got the facilities and, all the amenities and things like that, anybody can put a bid in. And then, there's a committee that decides who would be the best fit to host. And so I put a bid in for the men's and the women's. I used to host regionals 5 or 6 years when I was at Southwestern. And so organizationally, it's something I know that Marcelo and I are very good at, and knew we would run a good program. And so they awarded us the men's regional. And so it was an honor to host it. And it was great for our players to be able to compete at our home facility. It was great for our fans and parents and staff and the students to be able to come out and watch a really high level men's tennis tournament.
on the singles side in particular, of course, LCU was headlined by Martins Abamu capturing his second consecutive regional championship. He's going back to the ITA Cup after being the first Chap to qualify in NCAA eligibility. Other Chaps making deep runs as well. Freshman Pablo Segura reached the quarterfinals before losing to Abamu, and then Tristan Vigneron, he defeated the 4 seed on his way to the quarterfinals as well. So obviously a similar result for Abamu as last year, but what could you say about the overall contribution from these Chaps across the board? I know they had a very good start to the tournament, and then of course making some good rounds and reaching some far steps. So what was it like for the men's singles?
Yeah, in singles, we came out on fire. I think we had 9 players in the main draw, and first round we went 8-1, which you can't ask for better than that. The second round wasn't quite as kind to us. Obviously, Abamu, Vigneron, and Segura got through their second round matches, but then on the other side of the bracket, we went 0-5 in the second round. We lost a couple of tough tiebreakers. Blas Ruiz, who's a new transfer from Walsh University, he took the number 3 seed into a tiebreaker and gave him all he wanted, but then the second half of day one really wasn't what we were hoping it would be, and I'll kind of go into the doubles here. We had a couple of injuries early last week, and it forced us to kind of change all of our doubles on Tuesday leading up to a Thursday tournament. And the teams didn't have the chemistry. They're good players, but there's more to doubles than just being a talented tennis player. And I just don't think we quite had the chemistry that we'd had in Pueblo with the teams that we entered into the ITA with. And that was unfortunate because without the injury to Giese, Giese and Tipton would have gone into the tournament as the number 1 seed. And I felt bad for Kelly, knowing how badly he wanted to play in this tournament. And then I felt bad for Braden as well, because he was kind of coming back off of his own injury, and this was his first match play experience, and lost a heartbreaker. Had 3 match points in the first round, ended up losing 9-8 in a tiebreaker, and so that was a tough way to end day one. But then obviously to have Tristan and Pablo not only get to the second day, but to win that round of 16 match, both of those matches I think were huge for those players. They both played really, really good players from UT Tyler, and both went to third sets, and both players, I'm sorry, was Tristan's the third set? No, it was straights.
No, straight.
Tristan won in straights, but it was tight there in the second set. And, that proved to me the depth that we're going to have on this team. And then obviously Pablo, having to match up with Abamu in the quarterfinals. That was Pablo's first loss of the spring. And so he was pretty disappointed afterwards, but I told him, hey man, you're a freshman and you're 11-1 and you just lost to the defending regional champion, and now the 2-time back-to-back regional champion. So you certainly have nothing to hang your head about, and you're going to put yourself in this position again in the future.
Well, we saw a situation like that last year with Kelly and Martins matching up in the semifinals, where with a chance for a championship on the line. So what was your kind of word of advice to both of them in that situation entering that match? Because I know I heard you mention that it's kind of just a win-win. I mean, we have somebody advance, but it's also you have an awkward situation where you can't really coach both of them. But what were some of your words before that match between them?
Well, I don't know that I gave them a whole lot of words before. I know my thought process is it's an awesome opportunity for both of them, and I love both of them, and I would love for both of them to win. But really, all I'm praying for is that they don't go out there and kill each other for 3 hours and totally wear each other out, so that the winner can continue to advance. And it is an awkward situation because Tristan was playing right next to them in his quarterfinal match, and we essentially had to kind of ignore the Abamu Segura match because we would yell at let's go Pablo or let's go Abamu or something like that. But it's from a coaching perspective, it's great because you're going to have somebody advance, but it's also awkward and hard because you're going to have somebody lose as well, and you can't favor one over the other. So it's kind of a weird situation. And if Tristan had won, he would then have played Abamu in the semifinals like we had last year. But I don't mind those situations because it means we're advancing in the bracket, but it doesn't make it easy necessarily.
Looking at that Abamu match in particular for the championship, Marcelo, you were on the sideline right in front of a whole gallery of fans. I feel like it was the biggest watch party we'd had at the tennis center to this date, and it was a very cool atmosphere. So what was it like being right there watching Martins and see him just roll through the championship with all that environment and atmosphere in attendance?
Yes, first of all, thank you for everyone that came out. I think, as you said, the crowd was exceptional. Both our players on the other side of the court, but also all the students and faculty, staff that came out. I think we owe them a big thank you because I think not only did they push Abamu, but they also made up a great environment for the whole tournament championship day. For me, being on court with Martins is tough because I'm sometimes seeing myself watching these points and I don't know how he's doing some of it, and I'm just watching and enjoying myself as a spectator, and I catch myself and then think, I need to go coach him now, versus sometimes I'm just in awe looking at what he's doing on the court because he's just an exceptional player. And the final day, what he delivered was something that I don't think we could have ever imagined. I'm usually super nervous going into these days. All of the team knows that. But that he delivers matches with 6-2, 6-2, 6-2, 6-1 makes his life easier, but also mine on the sidelines watching. So definitely a great day for him. I was super proud of how locked in he was this whole tournament, not dropping one single set throughout these 6 matches. I mean, it's a really tough tournament because you have to win 6 singles matches in 3 days. So all 16 qualifiers or 8 direct qualifiers for the ITA Cup deserve it because they have to go through so many matches. So for me, what he did this year again was exceptional, and for me, spectacular.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It's just you catch yourself in awe watching him play, not only just because he's a grinder in the style of play that he does, but he'll flash the highlights of a backhand volley passing shot from the baseline. But then another thing that's most impressive for me, having watched the sport for a while, is just his mental and his wear you down mentality. It's similar to a lot of the highest level players on tour. So Coach, how could you attest to just his overall maturity and experience and how he puts that out in the singles play?
Well, first of all, I joke that he's been in college for like 7 years. So he's got a lot more experience than everybody else. He hasn't really been there that long, but it's close. And so we kind of call him the puppet master when he's out on court because he's going to play his style regardless of who he's playing. And we see the other players, like they think they're in the matches, and sometimes the scores would indicate that they are, but when you play against Abamu, he's going to put you where he wants you, and whether you realize that or not. And you're going to win some points, and you may win some games on him, but it takes a significant level of mental fortitude and just dedication to playing a specific style for 2 to 2.5 hours if you're going to get 2 sets off of Martins Abamu. And this particular tournament just kind of fell perfectly for him. He had a very easy day on the first day. I think he dropped 2 games. He went 0-1, 0-1. He played some doubles, won a round, then lost in the second round. And then the second day wasn't quite as easy, but I think he won his first match 3-5. Then he played Pablo, and that was a 2-2 match. And his opponents on semifinals and finals, like they had multiple third set matches. They were both still in the doubles final. So they had 2 more long, grueling doubles matches on their legs. The finalist played an epic third 3-set match in the semis. And if you don't have fresh legs, it's going to be hard for you to compete against Abamu. And that showed. I just don't think either guy had the energy to really do what they knew they needed to do in order to make it close against Martins. And that was nice from a coach's perspective. When you get up 3-0 or 4-1 in all the sets, you kind of tend to be able to relax a little bit. And I compare it to the nerves that we felt last year in the final, where Katsuda from UTPB, he's probably tired of playing Abamu at this point, but he was a freshman last year in the final, and he raced out to a 6-2 first set, and we're going, oh well, this isn't going so well. And then Abamu answers with a 6-0 set, and then it ends up being 7-5 in the third. And so I just remember how nervous I know I was, and Coach Marcelo was, and how relieved we were, that Abamu pulled that one out. Compare that to this year where, like, I was nervous going into the semifinals and the finals, but not for very long, because you get up, I think he was up 5-1 in the first set in the semis. He got up in every set, and that playing from ahead certainly gives you a comfort level.
Looking at doubles, we did see the doubles team of Herman Aguirre and Braden Tipton, like you mentioned earlier. They did lose a tiebreaker in their first round, but then rebounded and seemingly won out to get the consolation bracket title. And that's another pairing that we didn't see last year. Of course, the injury to Kelly has to play into that. But what did you notice between these two and their resiliency early in the year to fight back from a tough loss and finish out strong?
And we knew they're both very talented and solid doubles players. Herman is one of those guys that's just unflappable when it comes, we call him the machine, because he's very steady at tennis, but also he's just steady with his emotions. And I think the reason, that they lost that first round and then continued to get better was they hadn't played a match together. Obviously, Kelly and Braden had all of last year playing together. And there's a chemistry component to doubles. And it's hard to just throw a team together and have them be successful against maybe other teams that have played together for a while. And I don't know, maybe none of the teams had played together until this fall, but I think we saw a little bit of that in that first round match. They got behind early. I believe it was 0-3, down 2 breaks. When you get down early in a pro set, it's really hard to come back. But they did a great job. They fought back. They went up 6-5. Had a deuce point there. It wasn't 6-5, 7-6. I'm sorry. They got up 7-6, had a deuce point. It couldn't convert that. Then they got up again 8-7, had 2 more match points. Unfortunately, couldn't convert either one of those, and then got into a tiebreaker and got behind really early in the tiebreaker and just couldn't quite get back. And so what we saw is they kind of calmed down and played better together the remainder of the tournament. And they went 4-1, and they were the consolation champions. And I told them after the first match, like, they need to treat every match like it's the ITA main draw championship, because they may see these teams again. they can get better as a team by playing these matches, and they did that, and they won some close ones, and it always feels good to win the last match of whatever draw that you're in. Obviously, they would have preferred the last match to be in the finals of the main draw, but it just didn't work out that way for them this year. But they'll have other chances.
Coach, I just wanted to applaud you and Coach Mann and the program for just how fun it's been to see this program grow very early on. And as someone who's not very knowledgeable about the sport of tennis, it's so fun to see not only the team have some early success, but just seeing how close the team is together, and how each team, whether it be the ladies or the guys team, they're a fun group to not only watch but be around. And it's been a real joy to see the program be where it is now. When you first got here to LCU, did you think that the program would be where it is today? Not in just of terms of success, but also in terms of how much involvement there is, because there's seems to be a good group of players on the team, and there's a lot of support behind the team. I mean, a lot of people have been going out to the matches so far this season. So did you think that the program would be where it is today when you first got here?
I'm going to say yes, because this is what I envisioned building when I accepted the job at Lubbock Christian. Now you never quite know until you're in it, right? And so I think, well, number one, the first thing I did was the best thing I did, and I hired the best assistant coach in the nation right here. This guy works sun up to sundown and beyond, and we wouldn't be here as a program if it wasn't for Coach Marcelo, number one. So I made a great hire to start with, and then I think we would both admit that last year we were surprised by our success in the regional, because we just didn't know, and not only by Abamu winning it, but we had Kelly get to the semifinals. We had two doubles teams in the quarterfinals. We had Braden that beat the 1 seed. I think we took down 8 of the top 10 seeds in that particular tournament. And so that was certainly a coming out party for our men's program. And but the family camaraderie that we have is not a surprise to me, because that's what I expect, and that's what we demand of the players. And it does make it easier that they like each other, and that's who they are. And you get a little lucky with that sometimes, because you don't know in the recruiting process what kind of team person you're going to get. And it wasn't always easy. I mean, we had to have some, behind closed doors meetings about, this is how we need to do this. And, if you're not doing it, then you're letting your team down and your family down, kind of talks last year. And so, that's a constant coaching process to, make sure all of our players are fully engaged when we have matches going on. So that just doesn't happen by itself. But are we where we expected us to be? I think yes, because I think both Coach Marcelo and I were competitive. We're a bit perfectionistic, and we have a vision of what this program can and should be, and we'll work tirelessly to get it there. So I think I think we're very, very talented, and we have very, very great young men and women, and we certainly appreciate the support, from LCU and the community, which I got the vibe that everybody was excited about tennis coming, and so I had no doubt that we would be supported. And so I'm not totally surprised at where we are. I think Coach Marcelo would like to add.
Yes, and I'm not surprised either. I think if you would have asked me that question 3-4 years ago when I still played for Coach Speegle, and the environment we had at Southwestern College on the tennis team, I wouldn't have been surprised if you said if he would go to Lubbock Christian that he would create the same environment, and hats off to him. I think it's been a great 2 years for me. I learned a lot from him, how to set a team culture that before I was just placed into, whereas now I'm kind of outside directing it. And I think he's a great example of what a coach should be and what a man should be. So I always refer to him as my father in the United States. But it's been awesome being in this situation with the team. I think we have great young men and women, as you mentioned, that not only in tennis, but they're also involved in a lot of other things, working front desk in their residence halls, being involved in the community at LCU. I think that's even more important. And again, we also kind of emphasize the student aspect because they're called student athletes for a reason. It's not athlete students. Mm-hmm. And that is something that is super important to us, and something like on days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we all come together for study hall. And that's just another example of where we could where we can create a great team environment, but also be more involved in the LCU community. And LCU is just a great place for that. I just recently started working for LCU admissions and started giving tours, and it's been super easy for me to sell this school, in quotation marks, to other prospective students, because there's a lot of great things happening at LCU, and it's not only the tennis team, it's all sports teams, all organizations, all students that are involved here, including you two. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, and certainly some great things to be said about the university, but of course about the tennis team as well. So now as we turn the page towards the rest of the season, the Lady Chaps are back on the court in Wichita Falls this Friday in the Midwestern State Invitational. Then the men will be back in Wichita Falls for the men's side of that Invitational next weekend when Martin Zabamu heads to Rome, Georgia to take part in the ITA Cup once again. So now as we look at the rest of this semester before heading into Lone Star Conference, dual matches in the spring, what is the practice schedule and just agenda look like for the program moving forward?
Yeah, practice schedule is pretty much the same. You know, we're practicing every day. These matches in Wichita Falls are important. They have, regional and national ranking implications. And there's going to be teams there and players there that we're going to see in the spring. So the focus and the goal is the same, even though it's on the other side of the regional, is we're still making a name for ourselves. And we need to go into these tournaments and we need to have good results. And we need to, let those teams know when we play them that they're going to have their hands full when Lubbock Christian comes to town. And then obviously we'll be a little bit divided. Once we go to Rome with Abamu, we are very grateful as well. We have a addition to the coaching staff this fall, Amber Hands, who played a year at Wichita State University, played 2 years at Newman, played against us last year. She will be quick to say that she won her match, and I'll be quick to say that we won the overall match. She's from Amarillo, and she's amazing, and I think she's been a great addition to our coaching staff. So when Coach Marcelo and I are trying to win a national championship with Abamu in Rome, she has the task of taking the guys to Wichita Falls so that they can compete there. And then after Wichita Falls, we'll continue to practice, and we'll continue to try to get better throughout the rest of October before we kind of wind down into a little bit of our off season and turn our eyes to our spring season.
Now, before we go to sign it off, what's one thing that both of you are most excited to see, not only in the coming weeks, but overall in the entire season?
Well, for me, next week is huge. We went to the ITA Cup last year, which before I came to LCU, I had two goals: is to make nationals and to create a top 25 ranked tennis team. And being there twice now, or going there for a second time in the second year, is amazing and something that is I'm super proud for Martins to reach it. But this year our goal is definitely to reach a couple of further rounds. Last year he got sick, unfortunately, throughout the tournament, faced some tough competition. But I feel like this year we are more experienced, both of us. It's Coach Speagle's third time, I believe, at the ITA Cup. It will be my second time. So definitely seeing him reaching more rounds and going for a national title is more feasible this year, and something that I'm looking forward to. That's one thing for the fall. One thing for the spring is kind of carry on what we have right now for the team environment, and maybe even further that. I talked about having more involvement into the LCU community with the team. So not only about the tennis part, but more so about what we do for LCU. And that is, I think, still one of my biggest tasks for the spring, to get them more involved, and even more involved than they are right now. So,
yeah, I think one thing I'm looking forward to, I'm obviously looking forward to the ITA Cup. It's such an honor to be able to go. And I thank Abamu for taking us to nationals. And I do think that he has a chance to win a national championship. Like, there's no one that in Division II that I don't think he can be competitive with. And there's nobody in better shape that works harder and that plays the kind of game that he does. I think that's the great equalizer, is if, Abamu plays a different game than most. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think for the spring, what I'm looking forward to is I'm hoping that our both of our teams are fully healthy. We talk about that we've had a great fall, and we have, but we've been missing a key player or two on both sides the entire fall. On the women's side, we talk about Anastasia Krustaleva she's recovering from shoulder surgery, and we're hoping to get her back. She was, ranked in the top 70 and played one for us last year. Has a ton of experience and is a great tennis player. And, so I'm hoping that she gets back to that level. And that would make our women's team really, really deep and really, really talented. And talented enough that in my estimation, we could challenge for a conference championship. And then, on the men's side, we were without Braden for a few weeks. Now we're without Kelly. And in the spring, we should be at full strength. And that's going to create some, decisions for us, because, we're a deep, deep team. And our goals on both sides are to push for the conference championship, try to host a regional, try to get to Orlando in the spring. And I think we have the players to do that on both sides. I just want us to be healthy. And I guess the other thing I'm looking forward to is maybe taking a nap, because it's been a lot this fall, and I know we've been working hard, and we could use a little rest ourselves.
It's one of the few sports where it's year-round, from the pros all the way to college as well. But we're really looking forward to seeing how the outcomes show out and represent the program, represent the university. So it's always a pleasure joining you, and thank you for talking with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. And I'm serious. Come do some play-by-play.
That's what we're planning on. A little tailgate show at the tennis center. That's going to be perfect.
I'm certain we can make something work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait. That'll be awesome.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was Jason Speegle and Marcelo Mann with LCU Tennis. Be sure to stay up to date with how they finish the rest of the season. And thank you for listening to this edition of the LCU Coaches Show. This has been another production of the Chap Radio Sports Network and the LCU Podcast.